The accidental encounter of the Blackwood estate stretched across 50 acres of California coastline. Sleek, modern architecture, a testament to power and precision. Inside his private office, Ethan Blackwood sat, surrounded by screens flashing stock prices and security feeds. At 36, he had built his empire from nothing, a self-made billionaire with a reputation for ruthless efficiency. But behind the tailored suits and cold demeanor was a man who trusted no one. Not after his former business partner had betrayed him years ago. Downstairs, Sophie Carter pushed her cleaning cart through the marble halls, still in awe of the estate's grandeur. At 27, she had worked multiple jobs to support her younger sister Emma through college. This job paid better than any she'd had before. She refused to let herself be intimidated. That morning, while cleaning Ethan's private study, she accidentally knocked over a bottle of industrial-strength cleaning solution. The liquid splashed onto her uniform, burning her skin slightly. Glancing around, she confirmed she was alone. Ethan was in meetings, and the staff wouldn't disturb her. She moved behind a large bookshelf for privacy, quickly unbuttoning her soaked blouse. It she didn't know was that a nearly invisible security camera captured everything. Upstairs, Ethan was reviewing footage from the previous night when the live feed from his study appeared on his screen. His breath caught as he realized what he was seeing. Sophie moved with quiet efficiency, unaware she was being watched. A wave of shame crashed over him. He immediately deleted the footage and disabled the camera. Then he did something he never did. He called her to his office. When Sophie entered, her hands trembled slightly. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Blackwood?" Ethan met her gaze, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "There was an incident today, security breach involving you." Her face paled. He continued quickly, "I want you to know I deleted it immediately." "No one else saw?" "I'm sorry this happened." Tears welled in her eyes, not from embarrassment, but from relief at his honesty. "Thank you," she whispered. Something in Ethan's chest tightened. For the first time in years, he felt something other than control. He felt alive. The morning after Ethan's confession, Sophie arrived at work with a strange mix of nerves and anticipation. She had spent the night replaying their conversation, his sincerity, the way his steel-gray eyes had softened when he apologized. She had expected anger, dismissal, even shame. Instead, he had treated her with a respect she hadn't known from any employer before. As she polished the grand piano in the sunlit conservatory, she caught movement in the doorway. Ethan stood there, dressed in his usual immaculate suit, coffee cup in hand. "You're here early," he said, his voice low. She straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "I like to finish the East Wing before the household wakes." Pause. Then he extended the cup toward her. "Black, 1 sugar." "Mrs. Grant told me how you take it." Sophie blinked, warmth spreading through her chest. "You didn't have to." "Wanted to." His fingers brushed hers as she took the cup, sending an unexpected spark up her arm. They stood in silence for a moment, the morning light catching the gold flecks in his eyes. Then, clearing his throat, he gestured to the bookshelf behind her. "That edition of Wuthering Heights, do you know it?" Sophie's lips curved. "I've read it 3 times. Really?" His eyebrow lifted. "Most people find Heathcliff too cruel." "Or maybe," she said softly, "they don't understand what loneliness can do to a person." Ethan stilled, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. A growing attraction over the next 2 weeks. Their morning encounters became a quiet ritual. Ethan would find her sometimes in the library, sometimes in the gardens, always with coffee, always with a book or a question about her thoughts. He learned she loved Chopin, hated cilantro, and had once dreamed of being a teacher before life forced her into cleaning jobs. Sophie, Dean turned discovered the man behind the billionaire. He spoke little of his past, but she caught glimpses the way he stiffened at the mention of betrayal. The shadow in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. One evening, as she arranged fresh roses in the foyer, Ethan appeared, his tie loosened. His sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "Yes, you're still here." She smiled. "The flowers wilt if they're left overnight." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You don't have to keep working late. I could hire more staff." "I like the quiet," she admitted. And I like making this place feel like a home.
What, Ethan?
Gaze darkened. It hasn't felt like one in a long time. The air between them grew charged. Sophie's breath hitched as his hand lifted as if to touch her cheek. Ethan. They jerked apart. Daniel Reeves, Ethan's business partner, stood in the doorway, his sharp eyes flicking between them. We need to discuss the Tokyo merger. Now, whispers. And warnings later, in Ethan's office, Daniel leaned against the desk, arms crossed. What the hell are you doing with the cleaning girl? Ethan's jaw tightened. Her name is Sophie. And it's none of your concern. It is when the staff is talking. Do you know what they're saying? That she's sleeping her way into your wallet? Fists slammed onto the desk. You're fired, Daniel scoffed. You can't fire me, I'm your only friend. Then act like one. Ethan's voice was ice. Sophie has more integrity in her little finger than most people in this city. If I hear another word against her, heads will roll, but the damage was done. That night, as Sophie walked past the staff lounge, she heard Lillian Hart's mocking voice. Probably thinks he'll marry her. Please, men like him don't fall for women like us. Sophie's stomach twisted. She fled to the one place she felt safe, Ethan's study. The moment she stepped inside, the tears came. She didn't hear the door open, didn't hear his footsteps. Then warm hands gripped her shoulders. Sophie. Ethan turned her to face him, his thumb brushing away a tear. Tell me who hurt you. Her lip trembled. It doesn't matter. Everything about you matters. His voice was raw, and then he kissed her. Not gently, not cautiously, like a man starving. Sophie melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, her heart pounding against his chest. For the first time in her life, she felt wanted, not for what she could do, but for who she was. When they finally pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I'm done hiding, but outside the door unseen, Lillian smirked and slipped a wayphone in hand. The morning after the kiss, Sophie woke with her lips still tingling and her stomach in knots. She had replayed the moment 100 times, Ethan's hands in her hair, the way his breath had shuddered against her mouth, the whispered words, I'm done hiding. But now, in the cold light of day, reality crashed over her. She was a cleaning girl. He was a billionaire, and the entire estate was talking. A storm of whispers. Sophie kept her head down as she scrubbed the marble floors of the grand foyer, her muscles burning with the effort. Around her, the staff's hushed voices carried like poison. I heard she was in his study past midnight, ... Of course he'd pick the pretty one. Men like him always do. Her hands trembled, the sponge slipping from her grip. A shadow fell over her. Myra Patel, her closest friend among the staff, knelt beside her with a frown. Ignore them. They're just jealous. Sophie swallowed hard. What if they're right? What if this is just a game to him? Mira opened her mouth to reply Sophie. Ethan's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. He stood at the base of the staircase, his expression unreadable. My office, now. The staff fell silent, his eyes burning into Sophie's back as she followed him. The ultimatum. Ethan's office smelled of leather and espresso, the morning sun casting long shadows across his desk. He didn't sit, didn't offer her coffee, just turned to face her with stormy eyes. Daniel gave me an ultimatum last night, he said flatly. Sophie's heart stopped. Either I end whatever this is between us, or he walks in, takes half the investors with him. The room spun. Sophie gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. Ethan closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands framing her face. Look at me. I don't care. Let him walk. Let the whole damn company burn. You're worth more than no. Sophie pulled away, her voice breaking. This empire from nothing. I won't be the reason you lose it. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then what? You want me to pretend last night didn't happen? I want you to think, she whispered. What happens when the novelty wears off, and you realize the world won't accept a billionaire with a maid on his arm? His eyes darkened. You think this is about novelty? Before she could answer, his mouth crashed down on hers hard, desperate, like he could brand his answer onto her lips. Sophie melted against him for one glorious second before wrenching away. Stop. Tears streaked her cheeks. I can't do this. Not if it costs you everything. Ethan stared at her, his chest heaving. You're not a cost, Sophie. You're the only thing in this godforsaken house that matters. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Mrs. Eleanor Grant's voice was gentle, but firm. Mr. Blackwood, the Tokyo delegation has arrived early. Sophie wiped her face and straightened her uniform. I should go. Ethan caught her wrist. This isn't over. But as she fled the room, Sophie knew the truth it had to be. The breaking point that night, Sophie packed her meager belongings in the staff quarters. Mira watched from the doorway, arms crossed. You're really leaving? What choice do I have? Sophie shoved a worn copy of Wuthering Heights into her bag, the one Ethan had lent her last week. I won't be the ruin of him. A throat cleared behind them. Thomas Whitmore, Ethan's silver-haired butler, stood with uncharacteristic emotion in his eyes. Miss Carter, he's waiting for you in the garden. Sophie shook her head. Can't respectfully, Thomas interrupted. Bullshit. That man hasn't smiled in 10 years until you. If you walk away now, you're not saving him. You're breaking him. Mira grabbed Sophie's shoulders. Go now. Midnight confessions. The moonlit garden was drenched in the scent of jasmine. Ethan stood by the fountain, his silhouette tense against the night. Sophie's breath caught. He turned, and the raw anguish on his face shattered her resolve. I was 8 when my father told me love was a weakness, he said hoarsely. When my fiancé left me for a rival? 30 when my best friend betrayed me for a stake in my company? He stepped closer, his voice breaking. I built walls so high, no one could ever hurt me again. Then you walked in with your damn books, and your stubborn hope, and tore them down without even trying. Sophie's tears flowed freely now. Ethan ... Choose me, he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. Not as your employer, not as a billionaire, just as a man who's terrified of living without you. Somewhere in the house, a phone rang. Daniel's ultimatum. The investors. The company. Sophie made her choice. She kissed him, and this time, she didn't let go. The morning after their moonlit confession, Sophie woke tangled in Ethan's sheets, his arm draped possessively over her waist. Sunlight streamed through the windows of his private suite, a place no staff member had ever been invited, she traced. The scars on his knuckles, the calluses from years of work hidden beneath his polished exterior. This man built an empire with his hands, she thought. And he chose me. Ethan stirred, his sleepy gaze locking onto hers. Still here? Still here? She whispered. His phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. 37 missed calls. 82 unread messages. Sophie's stomach dropped. Ethan, he silenced it with one hand, the other pulling her closer. Not today. But the world had other plans. Lillian's revenge by noon, the photos were everywhere. Billionaire Blackwood's secret affair with staff, screamed the tabloids. Grainy shots of their kiss in the study, captured from Lillian's hidden phone, splashed across every gossip site. Sophie stared at her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror, her face pale. Mira burst in, waving her phone. Have you seen this? The comments were worse than the headlines. Gold digger alert. How much do you think she's charging per night? A door slammed downstairs. Raised voices echoed through the halls. Daniel Reeves had arrived. The boardroom wore. Ethan stood at the head of the conference table, his knuckles white on the polished wood. The entire board stared at him, their expressions ranging from disapproval to outright disgust. Daniel smirked from his seat. This is embarrassing, Ethan. First the maid, now the meltdown. The investors are panicking. Ethan's voice was lethally calm. Get out. Actually, Daniel tossed a folder on the table. That's your line. The board's voting on leadership today, and after this stunt, he gestured to the tabloid headlines projected on the screen. You're done. Sophie chose that moment to walk. In silence, every head swiveled to stare at her, the cleaning girl in her simple dress. Standing tall despite the hatred in the room, Daniel laughed. Perfect timing. Tell me, Sophie, what's your endgame? A payout? Ethan moved faster than anyone expected. He gripped Daniel's collar, slamming him against the wall. Finish that sentence. I dare you. Sophie stepped between them, her small frame somehow commanding the room. "Stop." She turned to the board, her voice clear. "I'm Sophie Carter. Yes, I clean toilets. I also graduated top of my class in literature, worked 3 jobs to put my sister through school, and love your CEO more than any of you ever could." She held up her phone, where Emma had texted screenshots of Lillian's deleted social media posts proof she'd orchestrated the leak. "But this isn't about me. It's about a company so obsessed with appearances, it's willing to destroy its best leader." The room held its breath. Then Charles Whitmore, the eldest board member, stood. "I've known Ethan since he was a kid selling software out of his garage. This," he pointed at the tabloid photos, "is the first time I've seen him look happy in a decade." One by one, the board members nodded. Daniel's face purpled. "You're all insane," motion to remove Daniel Reeves from the board, Charles said mildly. "All in favor?" The vote was unanimous. The press conference 2 hours later, Keithan stood before a sea of cameras on the estate's front steps, Sophie's hand clasped firmly in his. "Let me be clear," he said, his voice carrying across the murmuring crowd. "Sophie Carter is the bravest, most extraordinary woman I've ever met. If anyone has a problem with our relationship, you can take it up with me." A reporter shouted, "Isn't this inappropriate? The power imbalance?" Ethan cut him off. "She's not an employee anymore." He turned to Sophie, his gaze softening. "As of this morning, she's the new director of the Blackwood Foundation. And if you'll excuse us." He dropped his mic, pulled Sophie into a searing kiss, and walked away from the chaos into their future. 1 year later, the Blackwood Foundation Gala shimmered under crystal chandeliers. The cream of society sipping champagne beneath a canopy of twinkling lights. But all eyes were on Sophie Blackwood as she took the stage, her emerald green gown swaying with each confident step. 1 year ago, she began, her voice steady. "I was scrubbing floors in this very mansion. Tonight, thanks to this foundation, we've funded scholarships for 200 low-income students." Thunderous applause erupted as holographic projections displayed smiling graduates, including her sister Emma, now a marine biologist. At the back of the ballroom, Ethan leaned against a pillar, his gaze locked on his wife with undisguised pride. Thomas sidled up, offering a whiskey. "Still can't believe you married the cleaning girl, sir?" Ethan smirked. "Best damn decision I ever made." Proposal later that night. Ethan led Sophie through the moonlit gardens to their spot, the fountain where they'd confessed there. "Love a year prior? You're being suspiciously romantic," Sophie teased, her fingers laced with his. Ethan stopped abruptly. "I have a question." He dropped to one knee. Sophie's breath caught. "They were already married. What was he, Sophie?" "Carter Blackwood." He pulled out a small box. Inside lay a simple silver key. "This unlocks the beach house we stayed at last summer, where you told me you'd never been on a real vacation before. Where I fell in love with you all over again." His voice roughened. "I want to fill that house with lazy mornings and sunsets and maybe a baby's laugh someday." Sophie collapsed into his arms, laughing through tears. "Yes, you ridiculous man, yes. Lillian's karma across town." Lillian Hart scowled at her phone, where the hashtag Blackwood Love Story trend dominated social media. The same photo she'd leaked had been repurposed by the foundation now, a symbol of triumph over scandal. Her doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood there. "Miss Hart, we have a warrant for your arrest. Corporate espionage." It turns out Daniel Reeves kept very thorough records of your arrangement. As they led her away, Lillian's gaze snagged on a passing newsstand. The headline: "Blackwood Foundation expands buys historic building to shelter homeless women." The photo showed Sophie cutting the ribbon, surrounded by beaming faces. Epilogue: 5 years later, the estate's nursery was bathed in dawn light. Tiny handprints smudging the windows. Sophia Blackwood, age 4, giggled as she helped her father tie his tie. "Papa, look, I drawed you." She held up a crayon masterpiece, a stick figure, Ethan with an exaggerated frown. Sophie leaned in the doorway, cradling newborn Liam in her arms. "She nailed your scowl, darling," Ethan mock growled, scooping up Sophia. "Traitor, you're both grounded." Their laughter floated through the halls now filled with mismatched furniture, finger-painted artwork, and the lingering scent of Sophie's vanilla candles dot upstairs. The security monitors still blinked dutifully. But the camera in the study? Permanently disabled?